The Swift, mass-produced, not tailor-made, and loved enough to draw huge numbers just with that name. Almost 20 years ago, this little hatchback taught us that a fun car doesn't need to be expensive or impractical. And to prove that point, here it is against itself. Today, in association with Kicks Engine Oil, we're going to see how far we've come since 2005. This is Swift versus Swift. It's been 19 years since the Swift was launched back in 2005. This is actually a 2008 model. It's in the ZigWheels family. It's owned by Ishan, and it's actually fitted with a diesel motor, one of the more popular engines that the Swift was available with. Efficient, reliable, and easy to maintain, and responsible for a big chunk of the Swift sales. Now, before we reach the present day, there is a bit of history that we need to cover between these two first. We've had a few iterations of the Swift before we finally reached the present day. When it first launched, it was available with the G13DB, a 1.3-litre petrol, the same engine from the S-Team, and the D13A, a 1.3-litre diesel sourced from Fiat. In 2010, it received an 84 PS K-Series engine, a 1.2-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine to sit alongside the diesel, down a little on power but with friendlier emissions. 2011 to 2018 saw the introduction of the second generation Swift. Engine choices stayed the same, but it was more spacious and comfortable on the inside. From 2018, the third generation came to be. It had the same engine options till a 2021 facelift introduced a more powerful 90 PS dual-jet K-Series engine. And then in April 2021, the diesel engine was axed from the lineup, and Maruti's portfolio as well. The third generation, though, brought in friendlier options with AMT automatic transmissions and factory-fitted CNG. The new 2024 Swift now sports a new Z-Series petrol engine. The Z12 is still 1.2-litre but has lost a cylinder, and now its claim to fame is an incredible 25.75 kmpl. And I know all you Swifties and Swifters are probably noticing a trend here, where things are going in not such a fun direction. Yes, the displacement dropped, the power figures have seen a very up and down life cycle, and the new Swift is now both down on power, it's lost a cylinder as well. So is it really a case that the new Swift isn't as fun as it used to be? Well, all of these things are just facts and figures on a spec sheet. What matters in the real world is our performance tests. Whether your car is old or new, keep it at its peak performance with Kicks Engine Oil. This is first a snapshot of the Swift's performance against its predecessors, going back to the 2018 second generation car. And some numbers don't lie. The new car is slower. But now for some fun. The only way to test the new Swift's performance against a 16-year-old car is to do an actual drag race. Cue the drama. Drag races are my thing. I'm gonna smoke him. Ishan's gonna be eating red Swift dust.
Time to show these car boys that I can do more than produce and call shots.
16 years old, 170,000 kilometers. This gearbox is probably gonna fall out of the car.
Diesels have more torque and should launch better. Isn't that what they say?
Time to settle this.
All fat, no good.
And like our performance tests, the specs and numbers don't lie. The old car is quicker. Yes, an uphill drag race was never going to favor the petrol, and an AMT transmission wasn't helping either. A manual would have been a different story, but that's how the cookie crumbled today. Ishan wins. Ishan takes good care of his car and gets it regularly serviced, so his brakes are in good nick and the new tires should ensure that it's at peak braking performance. But ABS was only an option on the top end Swift. The big puff of smoke shows why ABS is so important. No surprises then that the new Swift will win this test. Unfortunately, with this weather, our performance tests have wet figures, but the braking performance seems on par for the course and it shouldn't be too different from the old Swift numbers that we have from dry braking tests. So it's one win each.
And while we set up for our cornering test, we've got time to thank our sponsor for this video, GS Caltex. And if you want your car to run 1,70,000 kilometers like this Swift, then you need to ensure that you change your oil regularly. And when you do change your oil, pick the best oil for the job. The biggest change over the last couple of decades has been suspension, both the components and their tuning as well. Struts and springs these days have a much wider range of operation, and manufacturers also spend years on tuning their cars. They also tune those cars specific to our Indian conditions, which means better and more comfortable cars. Back in 2005, while the Swift was fun, it wasn't the most comfortable experience. Ishan's biggest expense has been a suspension refresh over a year ago. And in addition to these brand new Apollo tires, he says the biggest change, and a positive one, is that his ride quality is much better. So now it's time to see if old and refreshed is better than brand new.
The rough road test was a really close battle. We were expecting a resounding win for the new Swift, but that just wasn't the case.
Here we go.
The old car managed to save 280 ml of water, while the new Swift saved 300 ml, just a 20 ml difference. On the road, the old Swift is surprisingly composed, quiet and comfortable. Ishan says from memory, even maybe better than the Swift used to be originally. And this seems to be the difference. The new Swift is just that little bit quieter, more composed and a tad more comfortable in the real world. The rear seat comfort is where the improvement is the most notable. So it's a win for the new Swift, and kudos to the old one. If you own an older generation car whose suspension feels tired, get it checked out and fixed. It's not too expensive a fix and will make a big difference.
A good cornering car is one that grips the tarmac and stays stable through a very tight corner. The Swift was always known to be a fun driving experience. Our corner is going to put that to the test now. Ishan Swift has received a suspension refresh just a year ago, and that new rubber means it's as ready as it's ever going to be to take on that corner despite being 16 years old. So starting off the cornering test with the 2008 Swift. The first run at 65 kmph. Pretty impressive. That felt nice and stable, lots of grip. I think this test is going to be a close one. No cones hit in that first run. Moving on then to 70 kmph. And here we go. And at 70 kmph, well, it drifts a little wide, but does a really good job and only knocks down that first cone. So moving on then to the new 2024 Swift. One thing the new car has going for it is larger wheels. In theory, that means a bigger contact patch and more grip. The old 2008 Swift set a 70 kmph mark, knocking down just one cone. Let's see what this new car can do. First run, 65 kmph. Well, that did a real good job as well. No cones killed on that first run. So we move it up to 70 kmph. And whoa, it drifts just a little wider than the old Swift, and we'll need to freeze frame, but I think it knocked down 2 cones. So the winner of the cornering test is the 2008 Swift. Let's wrap things up for today. And which Swift is swifter? Well, we'll first start with the 2008 Swift and the drag race that we had. Honestly, it did have things heavily stacked in its favor. A diesel manual was always going to launch off the line better than a petrol AMT. Yes, I may sound like I'm making excuses for myself, but a petrol AMT was never going to win in an uphill drag race. The next test we had, of course, was the braking test, and things actually flipped over. A non-ABS car on a damp surface was never ever going to win against a bigger contact patch with ABS. So the 2024 car won that test. Moving on to the suspension test, and we were really pleasantly surprised. It's incredible how much a suspension refresh and a new set of tires improved the 2008 car's performance. Ishan says probably better than it originally was. Still, the 2024 car was better. It's one of those aspects that the 2024 car has shown a considerable improvement. And the final test we had was the cornering test, which the 2008 car aced. Yes, it did beat the 2024 car by just a whisker, but what's more telling, and we'll show you that run now, is that its predecessor easy peasy managed that corner at 70 kmph. So in terms of a test, it's 2-2, a tie. The 2024 Maruti Suzuki Swift has grown into a better family car, but as a fun little hatchback, it essentially remains unchanged, which will be a disappointment to enthusiasts. Don't get us wrong, it's still fun to drive from behind the wheel, especially around corners. But stricter emission norms demanding better efficiency have hampered its performance. And here's where we think Maruti Suzuki may have missed an opportunity. The new 1.2 litre engine is efficient and has better drivability in the city, but it lacks the character of both the 1.3 litre petrol and the 1.3 litre diesel engines that came before it. For a brand like the Swift, Maruti really should have considered the 1 litre turbo booster jet engine from the Fronx. That would have really boosted the Swift's performance and kept the enthusiasts happy as well. But perhaps what happened with the Baleno RS made Maruti think that demands like this are stronger online than they are on the showroom floor. And the winner of this test? Well, the Maruti Swift. Actually, it's probably you and me, because our automotive lives are all the better for the Swift having been a part of our automotive history. Much like us, it's had to change its priorities over time and has found a different balance in the process of growing up. And remember, if your car is old or new, choose Kicks engine oil to keep it at the peak of its health.